Hey everyone, we're here with the Korg wavestate wave sequencing synthesizer for a video about mod assignments on wavestate. Now, modulation assignments on wavestate are really open-ended, so basically anything could be modulated by basically anything else, and the way to create a mod assignment very quickly is to hold the mod button and press the right arrow. It'll say add new modulation, and then we can move a target knob. Or if we already have a parameter selected that, for example, doesn't have a knob on the front panel, we can modulate that and it'll automatically have that selected. Now it's waiting for us to select a source. For example, if we press the amp LFO button, it'll fill in that source. And then if we press enter, we've created a mod assignment. And you'll see that for filter cutoff, there's 4 out of 4. So we're on the last of 4 assignments for the filter cutoff in this particular program. And we can page through the individual parameters, like for example, the intensity, which is measured in semitones, which is very useful for pitch tracking. And we can also see some of the other assignments. If we instead enter accelerated editing, which we talked about in a previous video, by holding enter and then paging right and left, we can stay on the same parameter selected, but change assignments. Now, if instead we want to see what mod assignments are making up the current sound we have selected, we can use Show in Mod List, which allows us to only see mod assignments that pertain to a certain source or destination. So instead of holding down mod and pressing the right arrow, let's hold down mod and press the left arrow. And this is sort of a sort function that allows us to, for example, only see mod assignments that have to do with the filter, for example. So let's press enter. And now we only see mod assignments, if we enter accelerated editing by paging through, that have to do with the filter. Now we can page forward to mod list info and change that to something else, or we can just go back to showing all of our mod assignments at once, and then we can page through them like we were doing before. Of course, while we're in show in mod list, we can also press something like the amp LFO, for example, and then press enter and sort by all mod assignments that have to do with the amp LFO. Another example of how wavestate's hardware really integrates into its UI. And now we're only showing routings in which the amp LFO is either a source or a destination. And if I hold enter and press the left and right arrows, I don't go anywhere, and that's because there's only one such assignment in this particular sound. Now, if I go back to that show in mod list screen by holding mod and pressing the left arrow, I can actually see what's going on with any knob just by moving it. It'll jump to that. For a controller, I can hold enter and, for example, it'll jump to the mod wheel or any of the vector joystick X or Y. And then if I press enter and I have no mod assignments for that particular controller, I'll get this screen, which shows no results for show setting. To show all, go back and turn off our show in mod list settings. Now, while we're on the topic of modulation, I can go to my envelopes, and of course the first screen is my typical A, D, S, and R, but if I page to the right, I actually have the curvature of some of those parameters, and I can go all the way from linear to logarithmic. If I page to the right once more, I actually have different trigger sources. So for example, if I go to my filter envelope, I'm actually able to turn off the note on trigger function. So use the value knob to click that, and then I can select a different trigger source, which is really cool. So let's go to my generators, and let's select the filter LFO. So now, if I press enter, and I also have a threshold here, if I press enter and play a note, that's just an example, but really the possibilities are very broad for how that can be used. Now, while on the topic of LFOs, the Sync Notes button will, when a key is pressed, cause each subsequent key to have their LFOs synced to that first key's LFO. We can see another use of the Sync Notes feature by going to the program Train to Berlin and soloing layer A by holding enter and pressing the layer A button. It's got a pitch sequence that sounds like this. If we go to the pitch LFO and turn off sync notes, and then choose a step in the wave sequence for the pitch lane, and then set the probability to 50%, then play 2 notes, it'll show that these 2 sequences are running with independent probability. Now, last but not least, the step sequence lane can be used as a modulation source. So if we want to do that, we can press mod and then the right arrow to, say, modulate cutoff, and then go with the step sequence lane as the modulation source. Then we can press enter, and now we've selected the step sequence lane, and we have that modulating the cutoff. So that's a little bit about mod assignments on the Korg wave state, and we'll see you in the next video.